Hey everyone, welcome back to the Full Stack Web Development course. Today I'm going to be introducing HTML Hypertext Markup Language, which we're going to be using in order to create HTML web pages. So before I get started, please subscribe, turn on notifications, and like the video because we update our channel multiple times a week and you don't want to miss out. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing is, what is HTML? And HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, as I already said before. It's the standard markup language for documents to be displayed in browsers. So HTML is the most common language, and every single web page that we create will be created using HTML. And it can be assisted by technologies such as CSS and JavaScript. CSS helps style HTML elements, and what JavaScript does is you can use it to make your web page more comprehensive, more complicated, and so that you can use lots of different actions and methods when something happens, for example, on your HTML web page. So that's basically what HTML is, and most people use HTML in creating web pages, and that's what we're going to be looking at next. So one thing to note, HTML is not a programming language. So it's a language, and the main difference is how you create HTML versus how you create something using other programming languages. So basically, the building blocks of HTML or markup languages is tags, and the basic building blocks of programming languages are keywords. So we'll be using markup languages and also programming languages once we get to the back end. So just note that HTML is not a programming language. Not terribly important to know that, but it is helpful. So let's continue. So the first important thing to note is what HTML tags are and what they look like. So there are two main types of HTML tags. One is called self-closing HTML tags, and the other are non-self-closing HTML tags. And this is the majority of HTML tags that you'll see. However, there are quite a handful of self-closing HTML tags that are important and that we will be using. So what self-closing HTML tag is basically what it says is you have the tag name, right? So you have the less than sign, tag name, space, attribute equals value, space, another attribute equals another value, space, another attribute equals another value. So you can have this millions of times, as much attributes as you can fit into that attribute, and we will be talking about HTML attributes later in this video. So an HTML tag could have 10 attributes, it could have 0 attributes, and they all have different functions in what they do. So sometimes you'll be seeing just the tag name and then closing brackets. So one thing to note is that in self-closing HTML tags, you usually do not have, you always have attribute equals value, at least one of them. Except in just a few HTML tags. So just note that self-closing HTML tags, the syntax is like this. You have the less than sign, the tag name, space, attribute equals value, and so on for every single attribute equals value pair. And then in the end, you have this slash greater than sign, and that is what a self-closing HTML tag looks like. Now, most HTML tags, they have an opening tag and a closing tag. So the opening tag is right over here. The closing tag is over here. So the markup for HTML opening tags are like this. You have the opening bracket, tag name, space, attribute equals value as many times as you need. And then you close it just with the greater than sign, the greater than sign. And inside that, you can have as much content as you want. So most of the time, you can nest other HTML tags inside them. So you could have tag name, and then inside this, you could have multiple other tag names or tags, and then this closing tag. So Sometimes you may only be able to put text. For example, in the P tag, which stands for paragraph, you can only put in text because that's what a paragraph is for. Sometimes you'll be using text only, but the majority of the time you'll be able to use tags inside them too. And then the closing tag is like this. You have the less than sign, / tag name, greater than sign. So in the closing tag, you will not have any attribute equals value pairs, and that's also very important to note. And if you forget to close non-self-closing HTML tags, there could be a lot of problems in the way that your web page is rendered. So make sure you always close HTML tags whenever you need to, and most of the time VS Code's emit closes tags by itself, so you won't need to worry about that much. But if you accidentally delete a tag and your web page ends up looking funky, you should be able to debug and understand where you went wrong. And yeah. So now we come to HTML attributes, and as I said before, HTML attributes are just these things right over here that you put inside the HTML tag. And there are hundreds of HTML attributes that you can use. However, some attributes may only work on certain tags, and they will not be allowed on different tags. So, for example, this A tag, the A tag stands for the anchor tag, and the anchor tag is basically what we use, what we see in the web page as a link. So, this right here is a tag that ends up looking like this in the web page. So this would be your first site of HTML in action. And what it is a attribute equals value closing. And then you have click me for Google and then the closing tag. So this ends up in this section right here in most HTML tags. And you can see that you use is just text. However, you can use buttons inside them. Sometimes you will be needing to do that in order to style it. However, most of the time you'll just have text in here. And what the text inside, or what the content is inside the anchor tag is basically what will be rendered on the screen. And then the href attribute is where that link should go to. So this I've created a link and it goes to google.com, and when I click it, you see that we go to google.com, and obviously I didn't do that using HTML, I just used it in my presentation, but that is how each anchor tags are grouped, and that's basically how we'll be using it every single time we need to. So as I said before, this href attribute does not work on all HTML elements, so all HTML tags. So for example, the div tag does not support the href attribute. So if you specify it, nothing's going to happen. So you need to look up which tags use a certain element. A certain attribute. However, most of the time it is logical. So the anchor tag, of course, you do need two different types of two different things. One is the text that you're going to be displaying, and the other is where you'll be linking that to. So you'll be seeing some other tags that have the href attribute also available to use, and we'll be seeing that when we in the future videos. And let's continue. Now, on the topic of HTML elements, you need to know that tags and elements are not exactly the same. So, in the earlier example, you have the anchor tag that goes to Google when you click it, right? And so there are actually two things that is inside this HTML tag. So when you type in HTML into your editor, which in our case is VS Code, you're actually creating HTML tags. So this is what we'll be typing into VS Code, and this is what the HTML tag is. So the HTML tag is whatever we used to create HTML elements, and what HTML elements are is when you render or when you run the HTML on your browser, what the browser displays is the HTML element. So this right here is the HTML element. It's an anchor element, and this right here is the HTML tag. So the HTML tag will be displayed on the browser as this. So this gets displayed as this. So the HTML tag is basically the back end, and the HTML element is basically the front end, if you look at it one way. So whatever you code in HTML is the HTML tags, and whatever gets rendered to the screen because of your code is what's known as the HTML element. And in this slide, you see what the difference is. So HTML tags are the markup used to create HTML elements, and HTML elements is whatever gets displayed based on what is written or within an HTML tag. This note I've already talked about before. HTML elements do not look pretty by themselves, so that's where CSS comes in. And CSS, as I said before, is used to style HTML elements, and we'll be looking at that in the CSS section. So in this section, we're not going to be styling at all. So the web pages that we create are not going to look that good. However, it will give us lots of experience with HTML tags and elements before we get to the CSS section. Now, sometimes when you code in HTML, you may want to comment out some things that you don't want to render on screen and the syntax for it is the less than sign, exclamation mark, two minus signs, and then you have whatever content you want to comment out, two minus signs again, and then the greater than sign. So there is a shortcut for it. You select using your cursor all of the content that you want to comment out, and once you've selected it, hit Control/ or Command/ based on whatever operating system you're using, and that should hopefully comment out the content that you've selected. And that's pretty much it for HTML comments. Not much, but still it is helpful. And in some cases, you use HTML comments for fallbacks in older browsers. Now, when we create HTML files, you want to always end your HTML files with .html, with the .html file extension. And you may also see some people using the .htm file extension. Pretty much the same, but .html is more standard nowadays, and that should be enough to create your HTML file for your VS Code. And that's pretty much it for this lecture today. I just introduced HTML, of course. Not much to learn, however, you do want to know that HTML is not a programming language. There is a difference between HTML elements and tags, and attributes, probably the most hardest thing to learn out of HTML. Everything else is easy. I'm not saying HTML attributes are hard. I'm just saying it is probably the most difficult thing to learn out of all of these HTML topics. So in the next video, we're going to be creating a sign-up form, and you may think it's way too early. I haven't talked about HTML yet enough, but you will see that it's really easy to create HTML web pages. And the only way to learn is by actually creating web pages, not by sitting and listening to another person talking about HTML. You just need some experience, and that's all you need for HTML to create HTML web pages. So code along with us in the next video. We're going to be creating an HTML sign form, and we're not going to be using CSS, JavaScript, nothing like that. So it's going to be quite ugly, but it's just to introduce you to these all these different tags and attributes, which will be really helpful to you when you start coding HTML by yourself. And that's pretty much it for today. Please subscribe, turn on notifications, like the video, share this video with friends and family if it helped you. And I do hope that you've understood HTML. Don't worry if you haven't understood it completely. If you still have some dead ends, just come into the next video. I assure you, once you watch that video and code one with us, you will be much, much more confident with HTML. And that's pretty much it.